Life doesn't always move in a straight line. Some days feel calm and predictable, and then suddenly everything shifts. Plans fall apart, pressure builds, and before you even realize it, you're caught in a cycle of stress and overthinking. If you've ever felt like the world is moving too fast and you're just trying to keep up, you're not alone. Many people today are searching for a way to feel grounded again, to find a sense of calm that doesn't disappear the moment life gets difficult. Now imagine this for a moment. What if the problem isn't your life, but the way you're looking at it? What if a small shift in perspective could help you stay steady, even when everything around you feels uncertain? This is exactly what Stoicism teaches. It's not just an ancient philosophy from centuries ago. It's a practical way of thinking that helps you stay clear, strong, and focused no matter what life throws at you. On Stoicism Breath, we explore how these timeless ideas can be applied to modern life. Think of Stoicism as your internal compass, something that keeps you aligned when emotions try to pull you in different directions. It teaches you how to respond instead of react, how to protect your peace instead of chasing control, and how to build resilience from within. So if you're looking to reduce stress, strengthen your mindset, or simply feel more at peace in your daily life, stay with me. Because by the end of this, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll start to see your life differently. And sometimes, that shift is all it takes to change everything. Now let's begin with something that affects all of us more than we realize. Trust. Who you trust can shape your life in powerful ways. And the first type of person you need to be careful with is the manipulative individual. Trust is not just a simple choice. It's an investment. It's like handing someone the pen and allowing them to draw part of your life story. In the right hands, that story becomes something meaningful and strong. But in the wrong hands, it can be distorted in ways you never expected. Manipulative people rarely show their true intentions right away. In fact, they often appear charming, confident, even supportive. They know how to say the right things at the right time. They make you feel understood, valued, even special. But behind that surface, there's often a different motive. While you're focused on the connection, they're focused on control. You might notice small things at first. A story that doesn't quite add up. Promises that feel slightly off. A strange feeling in your gut that you can't fully explain. And this is where most people make a mistake. They ignore those signals. They convince themselves everything is fine because they want it to be. Stoicism teaches a different approach. It teaches awareness. Not fear, not paranoia, but clarity. The ability to step back and observe people for who they truly are, not just who they appear to be. It reminds you that your peace of mind is not something to gamble with. Think about a time when you trusted someone and later realized something wasn't right from the beginning. That feeling you had early on, that quiet inner voice, it was there for a reason. Stoicism encourages you to respect that voice. One powerful idea from Epictetus is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We should listen more than we speak. Not just to words, but to tone, to patterns, to what is left unsaid. Because often, the truth isn't hidden in what people tell you, but in what they avoid saying. Being strong doesn't mean trusting everyone. It means choosing carefully. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, or your vulnerability. And sometimes, the strongest decision you can make is to walk away quietly, without drama, without explanation. At the end of the day, you are the one shaping your life. You are the one holding the brush. And no matter how convincing someone may seem, you should never hand that brush over to someone who hasn't earned your trust. Protect your peace. Stay aware. And remember, not everyone who smiles at you is on your side. That awareness alone can save you from a lot of unnecessary pain. Now let's move on to the next type of person, who can quietly drain your confidence and disturb your inner balance. The constant critic. There's a type of person who doesn't need to raise their voice to affect you. They don't need conflict or confrontation. All it takes is a few words, repeated over time, and slowly your confidence begins to fade. This is the constant critic. You've probably met someone like this before. No matter what you do, it's never quite enough. They always find something to point out, something to correct, something to question. At first, it might seem like they are just being honest or even helpful. But over time, their words start to feel heavier. Like too much salt in a meal, what could have been balanced becomes overwhelming. On Stoicism Breath, we look at these moments not as obstacles, but as opportunities to strengthen the mind. Because the real danger is not their criticism, it's what happens when you start to believe it. When their voice becomes louder than your own. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that we should not become like those who act unjustly. And that means we don't respond to negativity by becoming negative ourselves. Instead of reacting, we step back. Instead of absorbing their words, we examine them. Think about it this way. When someone criticizes you constantly, are they really describing you, or are they revealing something about themselves? Often, their judgments are a reflection of their own insecurities, their own frustrations, their own need to feel in control. And once you see that clearly, something shifts. Their words lose their power. Stoicism teaches that your mind is your territory. No one enters without your permission. You don't have to argue, you don't have to defend yourself, and you definitely don't have to prove your worth to someone who has already decided not to see it. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is loud, the rain is relentless, but at the center, there is stillness. That is who you become when you stop reacting to constant criticism. Calm, grounded, and unshaken. So the next time you face someone like this, don't engage in their pattern. Don't try to win their approval. Simply acknowledge, step back, and move forward. Because you are playing a different game. A game built on clarity, self-respect, and inner strength. And then, there is another type of person who can seem harmless at first. In fact, they often appear warm, friendly, and easy to be around. These are the superficially friendly. They smile often. They laugh easily. They check in with you and ask how you're doing. On the surface, everything feels positive. But here is the deeper question. When life becomes difficult, when things fall apart, when you truly need someone, will they still be there? Stoicism reminds us that real connection is not measured by how often someone shows up when things are easy. It's measured by who stays when things are hard. True friendship is quiet, steady, and reliable. It doesn't need to be loud to be real. You may have experienced this before. A moment when everything in your life felt uncertain, and suddenly the people you thought were close became distant. Messages go unanswered. Support disappears. And you begin to realize that what you had was not depth, but convenience. Seneca warned about this kind of connection. People who move easily from one group to another, adapting to fit in, saying what needs to be said to be accepted. Like chameleons, they blend in everywhere, but truly belong nowhere. On Stoicism Breath, the focus is different. It's not about how many people are around you. It's about who you can truly rely on. The ones who show up without being asked. The ones who stay when there is nothing to gain. Because at the end of the day, life is not held together by casual interactions. It's held together by real bonds. By trust that doesn't break under pressure. By people who remain when everything else falls away. So instead of chasing connections that look good on the surface, choose the ones that feel solid underneath. Invest your time and energy into relationships that bring depth, not just noise. And finally, there is a type of person that reflects something deeper about the world we live in today. The inattentive listener. We are surrounded by constant distraction. Notifications, messages, endless scrolling. And because of that, something simple but powerful is slowly disappearing. The ability to truly listen. Picture this. You're sharing something important. A story that matters to you. And the person in front of you nods, but their eyes are on their phone. Their attention is divided. Their presence is partial. And in that moment, you don't feel heard. You feel invisible. Stoicism teaches that to be everywhere is to be nowhere. And when someone cannot give you their full attention, they are not really with you at all. This is not just about respect. It's about connection. Real conversations require presence. They require focus. They require intention. Without that, even the closest relationships can start to feel distant. So the question becomes, where do you place your time, your energy, your voice? Because these are valuable resources. And not everyone is ready to receive them. On Stoicism Breath, the message is simple. Choose wisely. Surround yourself with people who listen, who engage, who are fully present. Because in a world full of noise, genuine attention is one of the rarest and most valuable things you can give and receive. Imagine trying to have a meaningful conversation, but it feels like you are speaking into a void. You share something important, something personal, and the response you get is a distracted nod, eyes fixed on a screen, attention drifting somewhere else. It feels like playing tennis against a curtain. There is no return, no connection, no real exchange. And over time, that kind of interaction slowly drains your energy. On Stoicism Breath, this is where awareness becomes power. Because this is not just about respect, it is about value. If someone cannot give you a moment of their full attention, then what are they really offering you? Your time, your words, your presence, these are not small things. They are limited resources. And life is too short to spend them where they are not appreciated. Think about how often people complain about not having enough time. Yet how often do we give our time away to people who are not truly present? Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that it is not that we have too little time, but that we waste much of it. And one of the quietest ways we waste it is by staying in conversations where we are not seen, not heard, and not valued. The Stoic approach is simple, but not always easy. You recognize the situation for what it is, and you act with self-respect. You do not need to argue or demand attention. You simply choose where to invest yourself. You step away when necessary, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because protecting your time is one of the highest forms of self-respect. And once you start doing this, something changes. You begin to notice who truly listens, who truly cares, who is fully present when you speak. And those are the people worth keeping close. Now moving deeper, there is another type of person who can be even more dangerous, not because of what they say, but because of what they lack. The empathy-lacking individual. These are the people who move through life without truly considering how their actions affect others. They can lie, manipulate, or take advantage without hesitation, because they are disconnected from the emotional impact of what they do. It is not always obvious at first. In fact, they may appear normal, even successful. But over time, a pattern emerges. A lack of care. A lack of responsibility. A lack of genuine concern. Picture someone who steps through a puddle without thinking, splashing everyone around them, and never once looking back. That is what it feels like to be around someone who lacks empathy. And trusting them can be risky, because every piece of personal information you share becomes something they can use, not something they will protect. Stoicism teaches a powerful principle here. Focus on what benefits the whole, not just the self. Like a bee working for the hive, each action should contribute to something greater. But the empathy-lacking individual does the opposite. They act only for themselves, ignoring the impact on everyone else. So the Stoic response is not to change them, but to recognize them. To see clearly, without illusion, and to create distance where necessary. Because protecting your emotional well-being is not selfish, it is essential. And there is something deeper here. When you choose not to engage with this kind of behavior, you are not just protecting yourself. You are setting a standard. You are showing that empathy matters, that trust matters, that how we treat each other matters. And that is how stronger, healthier relationships are built. Now consider another type of person who operates in a more subtle way. The constant irritator. They are not always openly negative. They do not always attack directly. Instead, they use small comments, little jabs, subtle remarks that seem harmless on the surface. But over time, those small moments add up. Like tiny darts, each one barely noticeable, but together they create a constant pressure. You might hear a sarcastic comment about your choices. A joke that does not feel entirely like a joke. A tone that carries just enough edge to make you question yourself. And the hardest part is that it is often difficult to prove. It is subtle, almost invisible, but the effect is real. On Stoicism Breath, this is where mental discipline becomes your greatest strength. Because you cannot always control what others say, but you can control how you respond. Marcus Aurelius spoke about this often. He reminded us that the real power lies not in changing others, but in mastering our own reactions. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm again. The wind is pushing, the noise is constant, but you remain steady. You do not chase every gust of wind. You do not react to every drop of rain. You stay grounded. That is what it means to deal with a constant irritator. You do not engage in their pattern. You do not give their words more weight than they deserve. You observe, you understand, and then you let it pass. Because every time you react emotionally, you give them influence. But every time you remain calm, you take that influence back. So when those subtle comments come, when those small provocations appear, you do not need to respond with anger or defense. A simple acknowledgement is enough. A calm presence is enough. And then you move forward, because in the end, your peace is more valuable than any argument. Your clarity is more powerful than any reaction. And your ability to stay centered, no matter what happens around you, that is real strength. There is a type of person who seems to carry a storm with them wherever they go. No matter the situation, no matter the opportunity, their story is always filled with problems, complaints, and struggles that never seem to end. This is the eternal victim. You may recognize this pattern. Every conversation turns into a list of things that went wrong. Every situation becomes proof that life is unfair. At first, you feel compassion. You listen, you support, you try to help. But over time, something changes. You begin to feel drained. Not because you lack empathy, but because the cycle never breaks. On Stoicism Breath, this is where balance becomes essential. Because empathy is important, but so are boundaries. You can care about someone without carrying their entire emotional weight. Think about this for a moment. What if some of the problems they face are not just happening to them, but are being reinforced by the way they think? Marcus Aurelius once said that our life is shaped by our thoughts. And when someone constantly expects struggle, constantly focuses on what is wrong, they can unknowingly create a pattern that keeps repeating. It is like watching someone sail directly into a storm, again and again, and then wondering why the waves never calm down. You want to help, but you also begin to realize that unless they change direction, nothing will change. The Stoic approach is not to abandon them, but to stay grounded yourself. You can offer support, you can listen, but you do not allow their mindset to become your environment. Because your life has its own direction. Your energy has its own purpose. Imagine your life as a ship. The sea may be unpredictable, the winds may shift, but you still hold the wheel. And no matter how turbulent someone else's journey is, you are not required to follow their course. So when you encounter the eternal victim, respond with understanding, but also with clarity. Be kind, but do not be consumed. Because protecting your peace allows you to stay strong, not just for yourself, but for those who are truly ready to grow. Now there is another type of person who can be even more deceptive, not because they are openly negative, but because they appear positive until the moment you are not looking. This is the two-faced individual. In front of you, they are supportive, engaging, even inspiring. They know how to smile, how to compliment, how to make you feel included. But the moment you step away, something shifts. Words change. Stories change. And suddenly, the same person who stood beside you is now speaking against you. It feels confusing at first. You start to question what is real. You wonder which version of them is true. And that uncertainty can slowly erode your sense of trust. On Stoicism Breath, the focus is not on trying to expose them or confront them with anger. The focus is on awareness and choice. Because once you see the pattern, you gain the power to decide how close they are allowed to be in your life. Seneca advised that we should be careful about the company we keep. Not everyone deserves a place in your inner circle. And this is not about being cold or distant. It is about being intentional. Think about the impact of trust. Every meaningful relationship is built on it. Without trust, there is tension, doubt, instability. And when someone repeatedly shows inconsistency between their words and their actions, that is not something to ignore. A person who betrays your trust quietly can often do more damage than someone who opposes you openly. Because with an open enemy, you are aware. With a hidden one, you are exposed without realizing it. So the Stoic response is not to react emotionally, but to act wisely. You create distance where needed. You invest your time and energy into people who are consistent, honest, and aligned with your values. Imagine building a circle around you, not based on convenience, but on character. A circle where respect is mutual, where honesty is natural, where support is genuine. That kind of environment does not happen by accident. It is built through conscious choices. And sometimes, the most important choice is letting go. Letting go of connections that look good on the surface but lack truth underneath. Letting go of relationships that create confusion instead of clarity. Because in the end, a peaceful mind is not something you find. It is something you protect. And every decision you make about who you trust brings you either closer to that peace or further away from it. Choose carefully. Stay aware. And build a life surrounded by people who reflect the same honesty and strength that you are working to create within yourself. There is one final type of person that can quietly influence your life more than you realize. Not through obvious conflict, not through direct harm, but through a slow and steady erosion of your energy. This is the toxic individual. At first, it may not seem serious. They might just complain a little more than others. They might carry a slightly negative tone. But over time, you begin to notice a pattern. Conversations leave you feeling heavier instead of lighter. Your mood shifts after spending time with them. Your confidence starts to dip, even if nothing in your life has actually changed. On Stoicism Breath, this is where awareness becomes protection. Because toxicity is rarely loud. It is subtle, consistent, and often disguised as normal behavior. Like a dark cloud passing over a sunny day, it does not destroy everything at once, but it slowly removes the light. Think about your emotional state like something you are building every day. Your confidence, your peace, your sense of direction. Now imagine someone constantly bringing negativity into that space. Doubt, criticism, pessimism. Over time, that foundation begins to weaken. It is like building a sandcastle with care, patience, and effort, only for someone to come along and kick it down without even realizing the impact. And the more you trust that person, the closer you allow them to get, the easier it becomes for them to affect you. So what is the Stoic response to this? It is not about anger. It is not about trying to change them. It is about protection. You recognize that while you cannot control their behavior, you can control your exposure to it. Imagine carrying an umbrella in the rain. You cannot stop the rain from falling, but you can decide whether you stand in it unprotected or choose to stay covered. In the same way, you learn to shield your mind from unnecessary negativity. This might mean setting boundaries, limiting how much time you spend around certain people, choosing not to engage in conversations that lead nowhere but frustration. It is not rejection, it is self-preservation. And here is something important to remember. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Because when your mind is clear and steady, you make better decisions. You build stronger relationships. You live with more intention. Stoicism teaches that your inner world is your responsibility. You cannot allow external negativity to dictate how you feel, how you think, or how you act. That power belongs to you. So the next time you encounter someone who brings constant negativity into your life, pause for a moment. Notice how you feel. Notice the shift in your energy. And then make a conscious choice. Not based on habit, not based on guilt, but based on what truly supports your well-being. Because in the end, life is not defined by how many people surround you. It is defined by the quality of the connections you choose to keep. Genuine relationships are not loud or dramatic. They are steady, supportive, and real. They give you strength instead of taking it away. They help you grow instead of holding you back. On Stoicism Breath, the message is simple. Focus on what truly matters. Protect your peace. Choose your circle with intention. And continue building a life that reflects clarity, strength, and purpose. This is not the end of the journey. It is just the beginning. Because every step you take toward awareness, every decision you make to protect your well-being, brings you closer to a stronger, more grounded version of yourself. Keep learning. Keep growing. And most importantly, keep moving forward with calm, with clarity, and with strength.